Welcome to Over the Top Podcast. This is a show where we take topics that nobody wants to talk about, but everyone has an opinion on, and we let people get their opinions off their chest. We will literally cover every single topic except arm wrestling. Your host, Steve Matthews, joined by an array of different guests. So make sure you stay tuned in for Over the Top Podcast. So what's up, everybody? Steve Matthews, and you guys listening to Over the Top, and I am here today with Joseph Massey, who was former host of the Game of Inches, a sports podcast. So I had to have him come in here because we got a lot to talk about with sports. But first off, how's it going, Joseph?
It's going great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. First off, your background's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Hopefully you're not on trial for something too major.
No, it's the reason I'm former host of the Game of Inches podcast is because I actually had to take a step away because I'm doing law school now. And it's all online right now because of everything that's going on with the pandemic. So
Thanks,
we're doing
COVID.
classes. Yeah, thanks, COVID. So we're doing classes through Zoom. And yeah, that's easy learning about the law on Zoom. And so my background is a little courtroom. So I thought that was clever of me.
I like it. Just before we jump into this, the whole Zoom thing and the whole school thing is awful. I have found out that I am an awful teacher. Apparently, teachers have to have degrees to do this. I don't know what made them think I was qualified. But
yeah, it's awful. My daughter, my oldest daughter, she just started kindergarten, and it's horrible. Like, I know how to read, but I don't know how to teach somebody to read. What is this?
I'm with you. My oldest, he's actually in pre-K, and he's drawing his letters, and I'm like, how do you not know how to draw an E, son? It's right there.
Right?
Do it.
I get so frustrated because I'm like, this is obvious. Come on. And she's looking at me like all confused. And so it's insane. And I actually saw that some people are like going crazy because of math right now, because what they teach in math with the Common Core is not what they teach, what we learned going to school. So and it's apparently I've seen videos on it and how complicated and long they make it. And parents are not happy trying to teach their kid how to do math when they don't even know how to do it the way those kids have learned to do it.
Just stack the numbers and add them. It's that simple. I don't know why they ever complicated it.
I don't either. It's ridiculous, but apparently that's what I've heard a lot of people complaining about is when they have kids that are in math classes and they're yeah, I'm teaching the kid the original way to do math because this is ridiculous.
No doubt. So we'll kind of dive in here. I'm super excited about the new UFC card. I don't know how excited you are, but it looks like it is absolutely stacked on this card.
It is. It really is. I'm loving it. I'm looking forward to it.
So what fight on here are you looking forward towards?
Oh, I mean, there's numerous fights, but probably Tony versus Charles. Tony Ferguson versus Charles Oliveira. That's the fight. I am psyched about it. It's one of the best matchups I can think about.
There's no doubt that is insane. Now, the thing that I think is very interesting about this card is if you just look at the guys that are on here, I think that so many guys on this card are a win or out of the UFC stipulation.
Oh yeah, you do have a legitimate point on that.
I mean, Swanson, Dos Santos.
I love Club Swanson though.
I do too.
He's one of my favorites from the older days.
I don't know
but
about
if he
Ferguson.
If he loses, he's going to be in trouble.
He is. I think Dos Santos is the same.
Yeah, Dos Santos, Jacare. He could be if he loses, he could be in trouble. There's quite a bit on here. You pulled it up on the thing. It doesn't have Mackenzie Dern's fight on here. I'm really excited. I like Mackenzie Dern a lot. I'm a big fan of hers.
Indeed. Honestly, the women, when it comes to fighting, just seem to be so much more brutal.
They go at it like they got something to prove, man. They throw everything. and
They
it's
just
awesome, man.
they hate each other. They
I
hate
I
each
will
other.
say I will say one thing, like, and you can call me sexist, and I apologize if I offend anybody, but when they first announced that they were bringing women to the UFC, I was not for it. I was not behind it, just because I was like, I was never really big into women's boxing. It was never that
Hmm.
entertaining to me. And then, like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know if I want to see two chicks just beating each other up. Like, I don't know. I love it. I love it. It from the start. From
Yeah.
the start, some of the best fights on a card, almost every card, is two of these chicks just going at it, and they're technical. They know how to fight,
Hmm.
and all credit to them. They proved me wrong. They proved everybody wrong that doubted them. They 100% don't belong in the UFC.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that there's kind of some waves and stuff like going into the 145 division, with
Hmm.
Dana not really, he basically created that for Cyborg, but I
Yeah,
don't really think he cared for Cyborg all that much. So he was a happy little
she
Girl
was
Scout
she was
when,
she was a draw. She was a name draw.
right, when Nunez just put it on her bad.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh yeah, that was surprising. I was actually surprised because
you and me both.
Cyborg's just a
Cyborg.
a beast. Yeah. Yeah, she was like everybody like, "Oh, she's in a class of her own." And then Nunez destroyed her.
Nunez, just, she looked like a champion,
But
without a
yeah.
doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Now, what about the main event? See, this one's a little bit close to the heart because my last guest I had on was Ryan Carroll, which is my jiu-jitsu instructor, and
Mhm.
he actually fought Moreno in the World's Combat Jiu-Jitsu tournament out in
Oh, wow.
California that's hosted by Eddie Bravo. And basically, what it is it's your regular jiu-jitsu tournament, but you're not in gi, you're just in slick clothing and whatnot, and there's open palm striking. So
Oh, interesting. Okay.
if you want to pursue to a new position, you can straight crack him. And he said that's the hardest that he's ever been hit. And
Hmm.
you can watch the video. I mean, he cracks him right upside the face and just pieces of teeth. He said he was spitting
Oh,
out.
man. Jeez. I I don't know, man. Like, has it like he's just been so dominant
Mm-hmm.
that I don't know if Moreno can hang with him. Like, it's just it's just been complete domination since he's really gone on his run. And I hope it's a fight. I hope
Yeah.
Moreno can hang with him. I just don't. Um, I don't know. And if I keep saying him, and if you're like, "Oh, who's him?" It's because I'm purposely avoiding his name, just because awful at I am awful at pronouncing names. Awful.
I'm with you on
And
that.
it's what is Deviason Figueroa
Figueroa.
Figueredo, something
Yeah.
like that. And I'm really bad. Even when I hear it, like I'll hear it, like when the
Mhm.
announcers say it, and I'll hear it, and I'll be like, "Oh, that's how you say it." And then the next time I see it, and I'm like, it just doesn't stick.
I was that way with
The cra-
Khabib's
yeah,
last
when it's
name.
oh yeah, when it's a crazy name like that, and it's just not a common name, it just leaves my mind, and
Yeah.
I have trouble remembering how to pronounce it. So that's why I'm avoiding it.
And I think a lot of times with the smaller guys like that, the 25s, the 35s, and even get into the 45s, a lot of times they get forgotten just because they're so light.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it seems to be people always draw towards a little bit heavier of a fighter.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
ever since the UFC adopted, under 155, it's still somewhat relatively new compared to the longevity of, UFC in general.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
They're new, and this is a flyweight, and it's it is a really I can't imagine like being that size. Like I can't imagine like
right.
being a grown man in that size. I think I was that size in like the seventh grade. So like it's a little weird for me that these grown men are that weight, but they get down.
Yeah.
And usually they're action packed. Usually they're not like just standing around. Usually they're going after it.
Right.
So
Well, they've got tons of
was it
cardio.
yeah, was it the flyweight division that they were thinking about removing?
Mm-hmm.
A few, yeah, like last year, I think they were thinking about removing it, but they decided to keep it.
Yep.
Um, And yeah, we'll see what happens with this fight. I just don't honestly think Moreno could hang with him, but hey, he could prove me wrong. I mean,
I'm pulling for him. I'd like to see it. I think it's going to be a good fight. So, to kind of check back a little bit, talking about people that potentially are out the door of the UFC, do you think that Ferguson's on the edge there?
I don't know if he's on the edge. He had that super long. He hadn't lost. I think the last time we talked about how long it had been.
Uh huh.
Last time I was on the podcast, we talked about was like 2012 since the last time he lost, and he lost and he got beat. He got beat up by uh
Gagey.
Gaethje. He got beat up bad by
Yes,
Gaethje,
he did.
and it was a fight where you kept waiting for like, okay, when's Ferguson going to turn it on? When is he going to show up? And he never did. He just was getting beat to the punch every time, and Gaethje's punches were faster, more on the money, and harder.
Dude, he looked great that fight.
Yeah, he did his best fight, and then he turned around and looked awful against Khabib.
I
Awful.
know.
That was embarrassing too. So, but like Ferguson, so it's one fight. I think he's if he loses to Charles, then he could fall down quite a bit in the rankings though. I mean, he dropped from the number one contender to number three. That's where he's currently sitting. If he loses to Charles, he could drop quite a bit because there's some guys making a move. Conor McGregor's back in the division. Is going to be fighting again in January. Probably and I guarantee you he's going to knock out Poirier again, and um we'll see what happens there. But like, I mean, the lightweight division's open with
It
Khabib
is.
retiring. With Khabib retiring, the lightweight division's open again. Um, my dream scenario, and I'm a McGregor fan.
Mm-hmm.
I know not everybody is, but I'm a McGregor fan. My dream is McGregor gets the title, and then it convinces Khabib to come out of retirement, and then you can actually get a real Khabib versus Conor fight. And when I say a real Khabib versus Conor fight, it's when Conor's not coming off of 2 years outside the cage and after a year of training for a boxing fight.
Right.
Like, and I'm not trying to make that as an excuse. I'm not trying to say, oh, Conor would have had this, he would have won. I don't know. Khabib could still easily destroy him just because
Right.
his strength is Conor's weakness.
Right. Without a doubt.
I just want to see a fully trained Conor like in his groove like he was before fight Khabib, and we'll see what happens. And he very well could dominate Conor again, very well. But that's kind of what my dream scenario is for the lightweight division. But this fight, it's interesting. I think these two fighters, they're both very exceptional standing up with their hands, and they're both extremely, extremely dangerous on the ground off their back with their jiu-jitsus. So I honestly don't know which way I'm leaning towards this one, to be honest. I don't know way. I think this is one where I'm just kind of sit back and enjoy, I think.
You know, the worst thing about it is I love Ferguson. I really got into him, 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
just because he was so crazy with his training style and everything like that. But he's actually got such a solid ground game, but he never takes the fight there ever, ever.
No, he doesn't, and it's more of like a defensive ground game for him.
Right.
He's so dangerous off his back, and that's why a Khabib versus Ferguson fight was so intriguing.
I know.
So intriguing because he's so dangerous off his back. But as we all know, it never happened.
Five times.
And never will happen. We talked about that last time too.
Five times.
I think it was scheduled. I think the last time I was on the podcast, it was scheduled, and I said on the podcast that the fight was not going to happen.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking back, I think that's what happened, and I was right because that fight will never happen.
It will not, and that's a bummer because, what angers me about it is Khabib never really acknowledges anymore that Ferguson needs to be on his resume.
Yeah. Hey, look, Khabib's undefeated. He's pretty much dominated almost everybody he's ever fought, except Tyson Gabo, who I think beat Khabib in my opinion. But like other than that, like he's pretty much dominated everybody he's ever fought.
Mm-hmm.
But his resume is still not that strong. If
Right.
you look at the quality of opponents, it's only really the last 2 to 3 fights, I think, that could really be like, oh, this dude has a good resume.
Right. And like you said, the Conor one is, and this is what I hate because I was a Conor McGregor fan prior to about the time that he became the double champ.
The double champ, yeah, okay.
That was about the time for me that it kind of just started really taking a downturn. But up till he actually got his first title, that dude was grinding hard and he was knocking people out, and he was such an exciting fighter. I loved that he was calling out his knockouts, what round he was going to do it in, and he was fire. And then he got his double championship, never defended either one, and then hopped over to boxing, and it was kind of like, dude, what are you doing? But
yeah, he became Conor McGregor, as we all know. If you know Conor McGregor's story, Conor McGregor grew up very poor, was poor as an adult in Ireland, was on I think he was on welfare in Ireland, and basically like he fought not to fight. Like he loved to fight, but he basically fought to put food on the table. Like that's what like it wasn't like just hey, I'm really good and this is my career. He like fought because he needed it to put food on the table. And so money was always really big for him. And when he started making it big time and he marketed himself perfectly and started knocking everybody out and started getting that big money, I think making the money kind of went to his head. And I think he lost that kind of that eye of the tiger. Remember Rocky and Rocky 4, like he had to go find the eye of the tiger because he was living in that mansion and he was all like wearing like the turtleneck sweaters and stuff like that. You're like, that's kind of like where McGregor went, like where my name's bigger than anything now, and I don't need to train as hard anymore, and I can put on sideshow boxing matches.
I mean, in reality though, can you hate the guy? He got his paper. That's what he was in it for. He made his money.
He's a marketing genius. He really is.
It sucks as a fan. I love to have seen him just keep pushing the way he was pushing, but
it does. Yeah.
That's the downside. And regardless of what people want to say, joke, no joke, maybe a little bit of Floyd toying with Conor McGregor, but you take a guy that is the best boxer ever in history and put a guy that's never actually boxed a boxing, in boxing.
A professional boxing, yeah.
Yeah, never had a fight and still hung 10 rounds with him.
Yeah. And if that had somehow went to the scorecard, McGregor was up on the scorecard. He would have won that fight on score. Like he won more rounds than Floyd. And it probably was about Floyd just kind of messing around, knowing that he could go turn it on at any time and probably finish McGregor, which probably is what happened, but he was boxing very tactically, and he didn't look out of his place, and we all saw the training videos of him versus Paulie, what's his name, starts with the M, I don't remember, but basically he brought this professional boxer who used to be a boxing champion in to spar with him, and he was beating the crap out of the guy. He knocked the guy down, and then the guy after they released the video of it, the guy didn't want to fight him, and the guy didn't want to train with him anymore. Yeah. But I mean, it's impressive. He's a good fighter. He's a very good striker. He's a very good striker. He doesn't have the most solid ground game, but he has good takedown defense, and and if he can stay on his feet, I don't know if there's anybody in the division that can beat him.
Right.
So,
to me, his IQ is insane. If you actually break down his fights and watch how he'll dictate ticks and stuff that these guys are doing before they're doing it, and he'll start telegraphing them.
Yeah.
I know if he drops his hand a little bit to the left, he's going to come over with a right or a left or a kick, and I know how to get there quicker.
Yeah. Him and John Jones are very much the same in that they study their fight opponent very well, and they know movements. They know they know how, if I do this, this guy's going to do this. And you see what he does in the fight. He does certain things to test it. He'll throw this wild kick or something crazy and see how the guy reacts to it, just to test. Okay, how is he going to react if I do something over here? And I remember John Jones, just because John Jones is very similar, talking after the second DC fight when he knocked him out with the head kick, and he basically said, like, I studied him, and I knew that if I threw this kick, he was going to block low. So that's why I threw it high, because I knew he was going to block low, because I studied him and I know that's his tendency. and that's
Yep.
how he knew he was opened up. And Conor McGregor's very much the same with that.
Which, I mean, that's just signs of a good fighter.
Absolutely.
You know.
He's a student of body movement. Like it's weird like to say that, but like I've kind of followed McGregor and watched a lot of his training regimens and people he trains with, and he studies body movement and how the body moves. And I mean, obviously it's working out for him, and it's probably a great thing for fighting when you have to watch your opponent and see where he's going and stuff like that and what he's doing. But yeah, it's he's a pro when it comes to striking, and I don't know if there's many UFC fighters ever who are as technical of a striker as Conor McGregor is.
We got one, Mr. Nick Diaz, who's coming back this year or
Nick
next year.
Diaz.
Man,
The Stockton slaps, man.
man. So, talking about Floyd Mayweather, talking about boxing, and even talking about Nick Diaz, we're going to tie us all in here. So, for me, has boxing started to embarrass itself? Don't get me wrong. Like, I watched the Tyson fight, and to my surprise, Tyson looked fantastic for being 50 plus years old. I thought he came in, his gas tank was good. He was throwing crisp punches. You know, Jones was tying him up like it was a love fest, but I mean, Tyson put it on him.
So, to answer your question, yes. Yes, boxing is becoming a spectacle and kind of a joke, and it's unfortunate. Um, let's I mean, you can say it kind of started with the McGregor versus Mayweather, but it really didn't. I mean, like boxers have been trying to come over to MMA for a while. It was the first time a really big MMA fighter kind of went to boxing, and it really wasn't a terrible fight if you watch that fight. You
Right.
know, it, it was a technical fighter. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this fight first. Let's start with this. This fight between is it Jake Paul
Jake
or
Paul and Nate Robinson.
Jake Paul and Nate Robinson was an embarrassment.
Indeed, it was.
Because this is I don't even know who I know Jake Paul. I guess he does YouTube videos or something
He's a
like that.
YouTube.
I don't really know him that much about him, but apparently he does some boxing amateur stuff on the side. So he's boxed before. Nate
Right.
Robinson is a professional basketball player. Like he
Right.
doesn't have a fight background. Like so to put that was just a spectacle. That was like a you know like a sideshow thing.
Mm-hmm.
And Nate Robinson got destroyed.
And it
And
was
has become and yeah, it's sad. He's become a meme, and
the Nate
it's
Robinson
the
challenge.
the Nate Robinson challenge.
Listen, if I wouldn't attach the headphones, I'd flop over for you just
Yeah,
for full effect. But
yeah, it's crazy. So that was a joke. And then, but you know, I was looking forward to the Tyson versus Roy Jones, two of my all-time favorite fighters
yeah,
back in the day. Loved him. I didn't think Roy Jones stood a chance, honestly.
I didn't either.
And Tyson, like you said, Tyson looked fantastic. I think Tyson could compete in the heavyweight division right now. That guy looked fantastic. Those body shots were lethal.
Ooh.
And you know, Roy didn't want any of it. And he was tying up and running from him as much as he could. It became an even bigger joke when they declared it a draw.
Right.
It honestly seemed like the rules were a joke in themselves. No knockouts.
Yes.
How do you have a boxing match and say no knockouts? Like, I don't understand. Like, what if Tyson just hit him on the chin? Like, maybe that was why Tyson was going to the body so much, because he was like, if I hit this dude on the chin, he's going to sleep, and I'm not allowed to knock him out.
Well, to my understanding, the way that was supposed to be mediated was going to be the referee was supposed to step in if he felt that they were getting too violent, if things were getting too out of hand.
And that must have been Roy Jones' stipulation, honestly. But like, what happened? Like, would Tyson have been disqualified if he not like caught him on the chin and knocked him out?
Well, I do know that. So these rules were set by the California Athletic Administration, or
Admission, yeah.
Admission Commission. And what it was is that there was no knockouts. Any cuts would end the fight immediately. No judges, and there was going to be no winner. And I know that the promotion itself came out and was like, no, we're not doing this. The WBC is going to provide guest judges to score the fight. We're going to declare a winner. They even made a belt for it. Yeah. And you can't put those two people in the ring together and say, you're not allowed to try and knock each other out.
Yeah. but I think honestly, with them watching that fight and them declaring a draw, I think they had an agreement beforehand. Hey, we're just going to make this a draw
Mm-hmm.
because there's no way you can watch that fight and say it's a draw.
Right.
And then Roy Jones after the fight, maybe it's just like just trying to. I don't know. But Roy Jones after the fight saying he thought he won the fight was. It's funny because they went to Tyson and Tyson was like, "Yeah, I'm cool with it. Yeah, whatever." And that's where I kind of was like, "All right, they had this agreement." And then they go to Roy Jones, like, "No, I think I did enough to win this fight." And I was like, "What? What fight were you watching? What fight were you in?"
Where he's sitting there and he's just like holding his ribs the whole time, and he's like, "Oh," and they're like, "You'll run this back?" And Tyson's like, "Yeah, let's run this back." And he's like, "Nah, I gotta talk to my family, honey, you don't want me to do this again, right?"
Do I have my advance directive in order? Yeah, yeah. I think Tyson should keep boxing because he looked great.
Well, to my understanding, the way it's looking is this, I don't think he's looking to come back professionally, but he's liking to do these exhibitions. And I've already seen Holyfield's calling him out right now for it.
Oh, that would be awesome. But I don't want it to be I want there to be knockouts. And Holyfield is ballsy to be able to go back in the ring with the dude that bit his ear off.
Listen, I will defend Tyson to the freaking grave. If you go back and you watch that fight, Holyfield was headbutting the shit out of Tyson the whole fight.
1000%. He headbutted him like 4 or 5 times. Tyson repeatedly appealed to the ref. He's headbutting me. He's headbutting me. And right before he bit his ear, Holyfield headbutted him.
Yep.
And you know what? That doesn't justify biting a man's ear off. But you know what? I understand
frustration.
Yeah, I understand the frustration of him getting headbutted repeatedly. But yeah, I would love to watch that fight. You just need to have different rules. You need to allow Tyson to knock somebody out.
I'd be okay with an exhibition style if you want to do just 8 rounds versus 12.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I could even lean towards the 2 minutes versus the 3 minutes, maybe. But definitely, all the other rules in, just shorten it to 8 rounds. These guys are old. They really don't have any business being in there, but it's just nostalgia to get them guys back in and just see it again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that whole event was interesting. Unfortunately, everybody was hoping for a knockout, even though knockouts weren't allowed.
Right.
But I honestly think Tyson was taking some office punches because of that. I could be wrong, but he looked like he was throwing way harder in the training sessions than he was in that fight. Because in those training videos, man, that dude was throwing.
You're not a kidding. There were a couple times it looked like he about clipped his training partner.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy.
Absolutely. Oh, I would never hold the pads for Tyson.
And the downside of it is, and I don't know if people's going to be upset about this, and I say this, but I didn't like the fact that it turned into a concert. That whole pay-per-view was like a fight and then a concert, a fight and then a concert. I was like, what? I'm not digging this.
But I will say that Snoop Dogg was the best announcer I've ever heard in the
Oh my. Like,
they got to make that dude like the mainstay. Like, he's great.
Oh, the bias was so bad. He's like, get out of there, Roy. I'm like, Snoop, who you got money on, man? Who you got money on? Right.
Oh yeah. So that was interesting. I didn't like the whole concert thing. But who's the next one? They just come out with another. They just announced another one, right? Another boxing match coming up.
Yeah. Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul.
So the guy's brother, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know why I couldn't remember that, but Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul.
Now,
is he the older brother or the younger brother?
He is the older brother. But to kind of talk about how much of a joke this has become, I don't know if you saw the interview with Jake Paul. Now, granted, him and Nate Robinson had their thing. They fought. He knocked Nate Robinson out.
Yeah.
But he's on a show where it's 2 female black hosts and ask him with legitimacy if him knocking out Nate Robinson was racist.
Wait, what?
I'll tell you, she looks at him, she goes, do you think you knocking out Nate Robinson was racist? And he's like, it's a sport. And she's like kind of laughing at it. Well, then the other one comes on. She goes, no. Do you believe that it was racist that you knocked him out? And he's like, it's a sport. It's boxing. That's a shit question.
Yeah. So are they asking if it's racist for a white person to beat a black person in a sport?
Yes, that's exactly what they were asking.
That's
And
interesting.
to me, to take that sports that originally was already kind of a joke anyway, those two
Yeah.
fought,
Yeah.
but then to turn it into something else. And now we've got Logan Paul, his brother, fighting Floyd Mayweather, which Floyd has nothing to gain besides the cash payout that he's going to get at the end of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Logan has no business being in the ring with him.
Oh yeah. Well,
None.
first, let's go back to the Jake Paul real quick. One more thing about
Mhm.
like not even that interview. I don't even want to touch on that's just ridiculous question. But like his post fight interview, he called out Conor McGregor.
Oh my God.
Like in a boxing match, you would get destroyed. Like I hope you're calling him out in a boxing match because
He
in
is
an MMA fight you would die. But
he
in a
called out.
boxing match, like you would still get destroyed, even though Conor's only fought once. Like you would get destroyed. And then so that's just ridiculous. And then now Floyd, arguably the greatest fighter of all time,
Yep.
is subjecting himself to a sideshow boxing fight against a nobody, against a YouTube guy.
Right. Who has only had one boxing fight and it was against another YouTube guy and he lost.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah, that's right. He fought
he
the
fought KSI. Was the
KSI.
guy's
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. I remember hearing about that. I don't really know YouTube people, but I follow sports and it was on sports. And
Right.
so I remember seeing something about that boxing and he lost by decision, I believe. Yeah.
Yep. And
And
to rewind to that call out though, Jake Paul calls out Conor McGregor, calls out Dylan Dennis, and then also calls out another YouTube guy. So I'm like, how do you go from top tier MMA fighter to a mid Carter MMA fighter to a YouTuber? And
yeah,
you didn't call out a single boxer.
here's the thing. Yeah, true. But here's the thing. When you look at Dylan Dennis, a lot of people were like, oh, okay, Dylan Dennis, he might stand a chance because Dylan Dennis is not a stand-up guy. He's more of a jiu-jitsu wrestling guy. And it's like,
Right.
no, he still doesn't stand a chance. Like,
Right.
he still does not stand a chance. I'm sorry. How do you go from losing to some random YouTuber to fighting Floyd Mayweather? Like, is he that popular on YouTube? This is ridiculous.
He's got a podcast. Like I said, I don't know if you remember a few years ago they had the app called Vine. It was the 6-second videos.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I think I
It
remember
ruined
that,
my attention span because it made me only want to watch stuff for 6 seconds at a time. But it was one of those, there was a chunk of people out of that app that became pretty much famous and got some TV gigs and this and that. And that's kind of where he got his stardom from, was all of that. And
okay.
then he created his podcast. And, a lot of these people, I have no idea how they get their money. I'm sure it's through sponsorships or stuff like that. But
So are these guys just rich because of YouTube?
yes,
That's insane. Like I need to
yes.
throw some weird stuff on a YouTube video and see if I
The
can get
bad
rich.
thing is these people that get rich off YouTube were already had tons of money to begin with. So
Yeah,
they
that's
don't have
true.
to have a job so they can spend time doing this.
Yeah.
So, but now, he's big. He's got his own podcast, yada, yada, yada. And he's calling out Floyd Mayweather. He's like, I sent you your contract. He made a video where he had his name spelled out on a wall. And he's like, here, Floyd, this way you can write your name when you sign a contract. I spelled it out for you so you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about spelling it wrong. And,
But it's just where does boxing go from here? Because you got legitimate fights that no one even cares about. Who's talking about a Tyson versus Wilder fight again?
oh man,
Nobody's talking.
I'd love to
Nobody's
see it.
talking about it because everybody's talking about Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul and Jake Paul knocking out Nate Robinson. That's what people are talking about instead of actual legitimate boxing fights.
I think it's more along the lines of that the boxing fans have just started to diminish, but the YouTube fans are so high up, and I don't know, man. Like it's somewhat sad because if Floyd Mayweather doesn't walk into that ring and put him on his ass within round 1 or 2, it's going to make boxing look bad.
So here's the thing. Yeah. No, absolutely. But the thing is, I think that he's going to toy with him, like he kind of did with. I think he's going to toy. He's not going to knock him out early. He's going to toy with him. And he's going to drag it out. And
Probably.
you got people talking about that fight. You got people talking about the Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson fight, and you got a great fight coming up with Anthony Joshua.
Hmm.
You know, and nobody cares. This is a legitimate heavyweight boxing champion, and nobody cares. That's how far the sport of boxing has fallen, unfortunately.
Right. Right. Now, speaking of Wilder and Fury, have you ever seen any of the conspiracies or anything like that that Fury cheated with his gloves?
I have seen it. I'm not about it.
Like, I, I didn't believe it until I saw a couple images
The
where
gloves look weird. Yeah,
the gloves look weird. He's punching weird. Like
he is
it's
a weird puncher. Like watch his previous fight. He's a
I know.
weird puncher. Like he has a weird body, and he punches. Like I know that sounds weird. I know it sounds funny, but he has a weird shaped body, and
He
he
does.
punches weird.
He looks a little
And
chubby, so one for the chubby
yeah,
guys take a championship.
there,
I'm cool. I'm down with it.
there you go. And so he he punches weird, but the gloves did look weird in that fight. And but it wasn't even about the punch. Like he just outboxed
He
Wilder.
did.
He took him to boxing school. Like he showed him like, okay, you're a brawler, you're a puncher. Let me show you how to box.
Right. It was worlds different than their first meeting. Worlds
Yeah,
different.
and it was World Series. And even in the first meeting, I still thought Fury won the first meeting. I know it ended in a draw, and Wilder had that huge knockdown in the last round that saved him.
Yep.
But I still think Fury won that fight. And then the second fight, it was no contest. It was
Right.
just complete domination.
I agree with you on that. Anybody Tyson Fury fights, I'm excited to watch. The dude's
Yeah,
awesome. But
I agree, and I want him to fight Anthony Joshua. I want that.
I do
I want
too.
that fight to happen. Two British champions going at it.
But like you said, nobody's talking about it. Here we are talking about Logan Paul and Floyd Mayweather. It it's
Yeah,
boxing starting to become a laughing stock of the combat sports, in my opinion.
unfortunately, it is. Yeah,
And
it really is.
and I don't know how to bring it back. Like I don't know what they could do to bring it back. Like what you're gonna have to have is like the Tyson fight that where he had that exhibition to where you draw eyes that aren't boxing fans into it and put on a
Yeah,
show that makes them go, "Oh man, I like boxing again."
you need you need a star.
Mm-hmm.
And does boxing have a star right now? I really can't say that they do. They had for a little while. They had, the Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather, but
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, they could never come to an agreement to fight until pretty much both of their primes were over.
Yep.
And I don't see a star in boxing right now. I love I love Lomachenko.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately he lost his last fight. That was a great fight. I watched that fight. It was a good fight. I had Lomachenko winning by a round, but I could see it going the other way. Some of the judges scorecards on that were insane.
Mm-hmm.
Were just ridiculous. But I think I could see him losing that fight. He started too late. He
Yeah.
didn't really start coming on until the sixth round. He didn't really start boxing. He just kind of sat there and got outpointed for the first 5 to 6 rounds. It was weird. Um, but even him, like I talk to people about sports that even watch boxing from time to time, and they
Mm-hmm.
have no idea who Lomachenko is. They're like,
Right.
who? I was like, dude, guys, this guy's considered like one of the pound for pound best fighters in the world right now. Like, what do you mean? I don't know anything about him. How? And he's just not. They don't market their fighters really well anymore.
Right. Which is still to me blows me away that they can still pay him the way that they do. Just boxing in general.
Yes, right.
Like they.
It's incredible, and you look at it and you're like, how is that possible?
Mm-hmm.
And the UFC fighters make so little, and that all comes down to Dana White.
Right. Right.
But
Everybody knows he needs to pay his people.
oh yeah, but yeah, it's surprising that boxers can still make the money that they do, and because I just don't see the popularity anymore.
Right. So here's my spin back here to kick back. This is what I want to see. So Jake Paul knocks out Nate Robinson. He starts calling out all these people. I got my boy Nick Diaz saying he's coming back this year or next year. I want to see Nick Diaz fight Jake Paul.
Oh,
Put him in there with a striker. Or let's take somebody that the UFC just cut. How about a Yoel Romero? Put him in there with Yoel.
okay.
Put him in there with a real fighter. Let him see how good he really is.
So boxing or MMA?
I'd even do boxing. Nick Diaz, I
Okay.
think, kills him in boxing.
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah. Even Nate Diaz would.
Yeah. But Yoel, not as strong as a boxer, but I still think he'd take him.
I
Just
do too.
because the experience of fighting.
His speed and his power would overwhelm him, I think.
Right.
So and the experience of fighting, the experience of I agree.
And you just got to understand this. Like, you know, like I said, where I do jujitsu, I've only been doing it for about 3 months now. So if a person coming off the streets comes in, I'll be able to put it on them. I've been training for 3 months. But anybody that's been doing it for years, I don't have a shot. And that's the same way with the boxing is that if he's been training for a year, he's going to beat a Nate Robinson that's been on a basketball court.
Yeah.
But to go up against a guy that's been training for years, he doesn't stand a chance.
And that's where I don't think people realize how much technical aspect there is to fighting.
Right.
Like they're more so in MMA because you have to incorporate so much stuff. But even in boxing, it's so much about angles and body movement. And it's just not about being athletic and being able to throw a punch or take a punch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm sorry. Like there's a technical aspect to fighting, to boxing. And that's why Floyd Mayweather's so amazing. It's not just because he's an amazing athlete, which he is.
Right.
But he's not the strongest, he's not the fastest, and he wasn't the best athlete every time he stepped in the ring. But he was the most technically sound fighter every time he stepped in the ring.
Absolutely.
And you weren't going to beat him because he was going to outbox you. You know, and that's who he was. And he didn't have to do that against Conor McGregor, obviously, because Conor McGregor was not a technical boxer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so people just don't understand it sometimes. They watch it and they're like, oh, this guy's big and strong and fast and athletic. Well, that's not always going to do something.
Right. And my next question is going to be I don't know if you've ever seen Logan Paul, but the dude looks like he weighs in probably 205, 210, roughly, just eyeball.
Yeah.
Where are they going to meet at?
I've seen pictures, but I really don't have a gauge like where he's up with somebody that actually like, oh, he's standing next to this person. I know that person's this tall and this weight. So I really don't know where he is compared to others. So I mean, if he's around 200, yeah, where are they going to meet at? You know,
I know
because
Floyd
Mayweather, what, 160?
Floyd will go up to 160.
Yeah. I think he fought McGregor at 155 or 160 or somewhere around there. Yes.
But I don't see him going much higher.
No. And maybe they fight at a catch weight somewhere. I just don't know where. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting. I haven't seen them announce that yet of what they're going to fight at.
Yeah. I think it's just going to be a laughing stock, really.
It really is. And the sad thing is that, like, the only reason Jake Paul and Nate Robinson was watched is because everybody wanted to see Tyson versus Jones, because that was two iconic boxers. Like, I wanted to watch. I didn't really want to watch Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson, but I wanted to watch Tyson versus Jones. I don't care about Floyd versus Logan Paul, though.
I'm with you.
I like Floyd Mayweather. I watched almost all his fights. Like I when he was boxing regularly, I watched the fights. I don't care to watch this fight because I don't think it's a fight. I think it's a sideshow. I'm not interested in this.
It'll be catching on ESPN.
And I hope that nobody, I hope I'm in the majority here and people don't just watch this and it kind of like, okay, this isn't going to work. This isn't, let's stop doing these stupid things. But sadly, this is probably going to get more watches than the Mayweather Pacquiao fight.
Sadly, I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. And like we talked about, I mean, I think Conor held his own decently well when he fought Mayweather. But if Logan hangs equally or close to because Mayweather toys with him, then to me that kind of shits on Conor because him and Floyd.
Yeah.
Now you have a guy that lost his only fight. Now he's fighting Floyd Mayweather in an exhibition.
Yeah, and I honestly think it's going to be a joke to where that, like I said earlier, like Floyd is just going to mess around and carry him for 5-6 rounds and then maybe try to finish him. I don't know. It's depressing.
I hope not.
About
I really hope.
I really hope he just goes out there and just knocks him out in the first round and be like, yeah, you don't belong in boxing. Like, that's what I hope. But they're gonna make it a show. I just have a feeling because Mayweather is a showman.
Yep. Better yet, it should be winner keeps all. Whoever wins the fight keeps the money. Loser gets nothing.
Yeah.
I think that would be great.
That would be awesome. Yeah. Because then he would definitely knock him out quickly.
Because, you know, at the end of the day, Logan Paul is going to go into it. Win or lose, he's going to walk out with cash. I'd step in the ring with Floyd Mayweather for the
with Floyd Mayweather, absolutely. I know I'm going to get beat up, and I know I'm going to get destroyed, and it's going to be embarrassing. But Mayweather doesn't hit hard enough to where like I'm going to have lasting damage. You know. I mean, he probably knocked me out. Say true. I'm not going to sit here and stand and say, "Oh, I could take this punch." Like, he's a professional boxer. He still hits hard. Like, he's knocked people unconscious before. Like, I get it. He'll probably knock me out, but it's not so bad that like I think I'm going to get like neurological damage. Now, Tyson, on the other hand, I might be in a coma. Like, I might literally die or be brain dead with catching one of his punches.
Yeah, I don't think I would do it for Tyson. I don't think I'd step in with Tyson for X amount of dollars.
Well, here's the thing. Like, forget X amount of dollars. There was going on Twitter where the people were like, "Would you take a punch from Tyson for the new PS5?" And I was like, "That's like $500-$600. Absolutely not. Like, what?
No
How
way.
desperate are you How desperate are you to get a PS5? You'll never be able to play because you're brain dead. Like,
listen, people, stop playing consoles. Get you a PC. It's only like $100 more, and it's better.
And build your own. Build your own for around like $100 more, and you got a nice gaming PC, and yeah, it is better.
Gaming exclusives are phenomenal on PC. Games you've never heard of because consoles can't support them, and consoles are now starting to teeter into the bottom end of gaming PCs, and they'll get smacked down. Yeah. I say by next gen may be what kills consoles. Just my speculation.
It's possible. Computers can do way much more. And if you've ever like gone up against like people who are gaming, like if you ever do like gaming and it's like competitive, like multiplayer gaming, like there's some really good people who play on Xbox. There's some really good people who play on PlayStation. It's a whole nother realm with people who play on PC. It is a whole different ball game. These guys, that's like the major leagues of gaming. Like, honestly, it's a whole different level. It's impressive.
Yes. Now, see, with my laptop, I got a gaming laptop. Now, I've not quite mastered the whole mouse and keyboard. I don't like to play like that. I just take an Xbox controller, plug her in, and I play normal. But, you know, when I look at my settings and stuff like that, you know, now short of the new gens, occasionally, I don't think all the time, they can run 120 hertz, you know, refresh rate. That's how fast it refreshes. You know, your Xbox One and PS4s are 60 hertz.
Yeah.
You know, my computer's got it maxed out at 144. So my screen's getting refreshed faster than yours is. So I'm going to see you moving before you see me.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just simple stuff like that that's going to make me better. You know, now that they allow cross play, so I can play with all the people on different consoles.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing. Fun. That was the funniest thing when Xbox and PlayStation people were calling for a crossplay with PC. I was like, you guys don't want that. You do not want that. That's like Logan Paul calling out Floyd Mayweather. You don't want that.
Well, we got it all around. We
Yep.
got it.
Oh yeah.
All right, man. Well, I'm gonna hop off here. Though I really appreciate you coming on.
Of course,
Like we
man,
said
anytime.
earlier, sadly, he is no longer part of Game of Inches. He's a busy man, being in the courtroom there, law and order, coming to you. He's gonna serve you justice.
Yes, in a few years, if you need a lawyer, reach out to me. But first, let me process and pass law school, hopefully, and pass the bar, hopefully, and then we can talk. But yeah, once this is all done and I get past this schooling and everything like that, I do hope to get back into some more podcasting. So that is the goal down the line. Absolutely.
Well, excellent. I definitely appreciate you hopping in and talking some of this, the crazy stuff that's going on in sports. You're definitely the guy that I immediately thought of when I was like, I got to get some of this stuff out here. I got to get it off my chest.
Appreciate it, man. Anytime you got some stuff to talk about, sports or anything else crazy, just let me know. I'll be willing to hop on.
All right, guys. So stay tuned in, and we will check you guys out next time. All right.